Hello, and welcome to Rough Edges Podcast with Sarah I. Fox. In this podcast, I will guide you through my faith and mental health journey to dispel the stigma surrounding mental illness and to create an empowering resource for those who wish to discover more about these topics. I pray that this podcast will not only bless you, but that it will bring growth and healing to our communities. Hey there, Sarah here. Before you dive into today's episode, I just wanted to say thank you so much for your support and for hitting that play button. If you want to expand on that support, here are 3 ways that you can do so. 1. Leave a review. If anything in today's episode resonated with you, or you want to share how the podcast changed your life, you can do so by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or Podchaser. 2. Check out our shop. The Rough Edges shop is a faith-based, women of color-owned online shop where you can get a variety of products from tote bags, journals, t-shirts, crew necks, and more. 20% of the proceeds go to a mental health organization. So check it out at roughedgespodcast.com/shop. 3. Connect on social media. Rough Edges is on a variety of social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and more. If you want to connect outside of listening to the podcast episodes, you can do so on those platforms. If you have any more questions or want more information on the ways that I've just discussed, you can check out the episode description or stay to the end for more information. Now, enjoy your episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Rough Edges. Today, I am joined by a very special guest. Her name is Avantika. Avantika is the host of the Beautiful You podcast. She is currently studying psychology in Mumbai, India. She was diagnosed with bipolar type 2 when she was 17. She's a mental health advocate, and she enjoys reading, writing, and occasionally performing poems. She absolutely loves traveling as well. Welcome, Avantika.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me. I'm so honored to well into this conversation and be on the podcast.
Yeah. So, Avantika, before we get into our topic for today, I would like to get to know you a little bit better. So,
So,
what are 3 things that you are most passionate about and why?
oh gosh, 3 things I'm most passionate about. One of them definitely is traveling. I love traveling. I love meeting new people, and yeah, it's just when you're traveling, it puts you out of your comfort box and it puts you, in uncomfortable situations with new people, new surroundings, and it helps you grow in ways you wouldn't grow at all if it wasn't for, if it you weren't traveling. Secondly, the second thing I'm passionate about is, of course, mental health advocacy, because I feel like it's about time and it has been about time where we need to have more candid conversations and we need to speak up more about mental health journeys and normalize experiences and yeah, basically do more in the mental health community. So that's the second one. And the third one would be, I absolutely love poetry. I love public speaking in general. So I would say that would be it. I love connecting with people with my words. I love connecting. I love performing and I love the spotlight. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. So that just might be, those might be like the 3 things. Yeah.
Oh, yes, I really love that. And I resonate with like all 3 of them, especially like the traveling. Because, girl, I need to do my own set of traveling right now. Like, your girl's in need of a vacation for
Oh
sure.
my
But
god. I just
yeah.
went on a vacation in like May, towards the end of May. And honestly, traveling is very addictive because I took my first solo trip when I was 19, like last year. And then my body started craving traveling again. And then, like after like I don't know 8 or 10 months, I was like, I need to travel again. I need to travel again. And then I did it in May to like end of May. And then within just 2 months, my body was again like, we need to travel again. We need to. It's like, damn, bro, calm down. We just went on a trip and came back. But yeah, I actually might end up taking another trip in 2 months, which is fun. So there's that.
All right. That is so cool. Where are you going, if you don't mind me asking?
It's one of the states in India itself. It's called Goa. So it's a very very famous state where it's just known for parties, honestly. So I'm the kind of traveler who does like solo traveling and slow travel, especially. So me, I don't like going to crowded places, but this is my last year of college and I do have a friend who wants to go to Goa as well, and I've never been to Goa. And it's very famous for New Year's, so like you have to go to Goa for New Year's if you're into like parties and just having fun. It gets very loud. So yeah, that is where I'm planning to go. Let's see how it, like, if it actually falls through, like not falls through, if it actually goes through. So
Yes.
yeah, I hope it does, but we are still in the planning stage of it. We'll see how it goes.
Ooh, wow. I would love to hear all about it, like offline, of course.
Yes, I'll keep you updated.
Yes, of course. So, Avantika, today we are going to be like talking mostly about your journey
Mm.
with managing bipolar disorder. So, could you tell me more about your mental health journey and what are some lessons that you've learned about healing during the process?
A bit about my mental health journey. So I think it started, honestly, when I think about it, it dates back to when I was 10. So for the first time I experienced dissociation when I was 10 because of some things which are going on at in my personal life. And I had no idea what was happening. I could sense that it was an out of bodily experience for me, and I was very confused because I was 10, right? So um I I told my one of my parents about it, and they mentioned that it just might be because of something else, like, oh, watching too much TV or being on your phone, stuff like that. Because even they weren't aware about what exactly is happening. So then I was 15 when, so that was one of the things which was alarming for me. But I was like, oh, it just might be something else, and I brushed it off. It happened for a week straight, and then it didn't happen again. And then I was 15 when I got suicidal for the first time, and I was diagnosed with depression, anxiety, and PTSD when I was 15. So that started the role of medications in my life. I went to therapy for that. I actually went to my school counselor for that, and then on and off medications and on and off therapy. I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 2 when I was 17. And again, it has been a journey to find the right psychiatrist and a therapist for me. So eventually, last year of January, I went to this organization, and they gave this set of psychiatrists and therapists for me, and I've been going to them ever since. So it has been a little bit hectic in terms of my mental health diagnosis. It took me a while because having been diagnosed with something like bipolar at 17 was very shocking. I was in denial for a good amount of time. I would feel like an imposter when I would say that, oh, I have bipolar, because people are like, well, it's all in your head, or it's not really happening, or you're too young, you're thinking too much. Don't think too much about it, and it might just go away, stuff like that. But that's not how it happens. So that was that was the part of it, and the lessons that I've learned about healing during the process is that it really, really, really is not linear. Oh my god, it pains me to say this out loud, but it's like it's very it's easier to say it to someone else that, oh, healing isn't linear. You're good, you'll be fine. But when you're going through the process of it, when you're going through the ups and downs, and it feels suffocating sometimes to just go through the motions and never get better. But you are getting better though. One of the things that I remind myself is, um, 5 steps forward and 2 steps backwards is still 3 steps forward. Thank you so much.
I also wanted to talk about your podcast. So, what made you decide to become a mental health advocate, and how did you create the Beautiful You podcast?
That's such a good question. Thank you for asking me that. So, what made me decide to become a mental health advocate is honestly the power of speaking up. I always, like, it's very cliched, but I always live by the code, be the change you want to see in the world, right? So
Yeah.
I I tried to become someone that whom I wanted when I was younger. And I think if when I was younger, if I had a friendly face, or if I knew someone who was going through something similar, it might have made my journey a little bit smoother, knowing that, oh, I'm not alone, right? So one of the things that helped me become an advocate, is just understanding the power of speaking up, because not everyone is able to talk about their journeys. So if you're in a place where you're able to advocate for it, if you're able to speak up, if you're able to share your journeys without it being detrimental to your own health, I feel like that is very powerful, not just for yourself, but also for others. It gives strength to those who can't speak up just yet, right? So that is one of the reasons. And through with therapy and everything, I eventually got to a place where I was able to talk about my journey. It wasn't easy, because being vulnerable on the internet is never easy, or even in front of people in real life, right? But I was like, this is this is I'm just trying to be the person that I wish existed. So instead of just wishing that, oh, this is something that needs to be done, what am I doing to make it happen? So I just wanted to be the change that I wanted to see in the world. And how I started my podcast, so it started in November 2021. So I would write things about, like, stuff about mental health, via, like, either by blogs or poetry, or I would make videos, and it resonated with people a lot. I was like, wait a minute. So the message that I'm trying to send across, it's getting resonated with people. So that is what made me more inspired. In like 2021, I absolutely loved the concept of podcast. I would listen to a lot of it. I think it was still pandemic. Pandemic was still happening, so I had a lot of free time on with myself. So I just, like, I would think about it. Oh, what if I start my podcast? What if I talk about these journeys, because I also love talking. So I put all of them together, and I was like, you know what? I would want the audience to grow with me. So if I'm doing it at an earlier age, it will be like the audience is growing with me, and I would be changing a lot. So I'd be able to, share those experiences with the audience quite more. So this is why Beautiful You came into existence. Beautiful You, the podcast, came into existence. I just wanted to share stories. I wanted to share my story and build a safe community of people where we normalize, mental health experiences and inspire each other. I always believe that empower people, and I just wanted to engage in conversations. And eventually, it grew into something where um, we were sharing stories to get deeper insight. So I'm also studying psychology, and as a psychology major, what is one thing we learn is clinical disorders, and we learn about symptoms, and we study case studies all the time. But I realized, when you talk to someone who has been diagnosed with a certain disorder, the amount of insight you get is something that you could never understand just by reading disorders, just by reading about it, So that is another thing. I just wanted to understand people better. So engaging in conversations like that, but like in candid conversations, helps a lot in destigmatizing mental health, for sure.
Wow. I love all of that. Like, that was so incredible. And even like how your reasons for becoming a mental health advocate tied in to your reasons for creating the podcast, it all boils down to like, I want to help people, and I also want to understand like how people with mental health conditions manage, and that is just such like a wonderful thing, because you don't find that in a lot of people where they want to actually be the change that they want to see. It's usually, let's complain about the change until it
Yeah.
changes. So I am also super grateful for you and the Beautiful You podcast, because that is actually how we connected. Like, I
Yeah.
saw like your mental health awareness challenge, and I was like, oh, like, this is cool, let me connect. And yeah, and the rest is history. So but all that to say is that I'm grateful for you stepping out and you being bold and, courageous enough to tell your story and to also want to help others. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for you and the work that you do as well. It's very, very inspiring to see you keep going at it. And yeah, like, over the course of a few months, at this point, we have gotten to know each other pretty well. And I can see how much you're hustling. I can see how much you're grinding and trying so hard to, have it, make a change, right? Because everyone just wants to be the people in this space. We just want to make a change. We just want to reach out to more people and make them feel less alone. And I can guarantee that you're literally doing that. So thank you for all the work that you do as well.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And so I just wanted to go into like your poetry because I know that you write and perform poetry. So like what inspired you to write poetry about your own experiences with mental health?
So the ones sometimes it's difficult to tell people what is going on with just words. It's very like so. If you have, there are certain things that if you haven't been through it, you wouldn't quite understand. You can try to empathize with it, but you wouldn't quite understand what it is, right? So I have always loved writing, and the poetry that I wrote recently about my mental health experiences is to just help others get an insight. So I don't have to explain all the time. I'm like, here's the poem that will explain what's happening, stuff like that, you know? So,
Mhm.
yeah, and it's like poetry is an art form. I've always loved art. I always find myself writing some of my best work when I'm overwhelmed with emotions. So that's one thing. So I don't write a lot of poems, but the ones that I write, I absolutely love them. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, one thing that helps is just one thing that inspires me is just help people get insight into what it is like to live with a certain mental health condition.
Yeah, and also like what is like one of your favorite pieces that you wrote?
I wrote this poem called "I Love Love," and I like it because it screams like my vibes. It screams Avantika. But the other one about mental health, there's this one poem that I wrote what it feels like to live with bipolar, and I recently performed at one of my college fests as well. And people got a lot of insight into what it is. So one thing that I aim with this particular poem is to give them insight. Like at the end of the day, I want you to get a better idea on what it is like to live with bipolar. So all the listeners and the audience that I have had so far, pretty much every one of them have told me that they did get insight into living with bipolar. So, that's wonderful.
Wow, I love that. I really do. And it was such a powerful poem. Like, honestly, I'm gonna link the video in the show notes because like everybody needs to hear this. Like, it is so not only insightful, but it is so like empowering too, where it's just like you encourage and uplift people saying, hey, even if you have this, you can still thrive, you can still move forward, and you can still, be successful. So
Mm,
I love the element of hope that you have in there too. It was really touching.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. So I do want to ask you about kind of like mental health and culture. So
Mm.
if you could change one thing about how your culture views mental health, what would it be?
So many things, honestly. I'm from India, and the Indian culture is not supportive of mental health. I mean, we have come a long way, but it's not enough. We need to go a longer way. And
Mhm.
one thing I would change is acceptance, because people do not have acceptance for mental health disorders in any capacity whatsoever. One thing that I would change is how people look at mental health as well, the language that they use around it. Um, it's demonized in certain parts of India. Like I live in Mumbai, which is one of the biggest cities in India. So it's a little better in in the city. In the cities, it's a little better, but when you go to the rural India, or when you go to less urban areas, people would just be like, mental health what? They would have no
Mhm.
idea what it is. And even it's like the psychiatrists are referred to as we in Hindi we call them pagalo ka doctor, which basically means doctors for the ones who are mad or who are insane. So stuff like this, the language around certain mental health terms or conditions, everything needs to be changed. But I think one thing that I would like to change is acceptance, the amount of acceptance that people have. Yeah.
Wow, that is just so like it's unfortunate that even in like 2023, like there are still like a long ways to go in terms of like getting cultures into acceptance. And it's just like in the way that you were describing like the Indian culture, like surrounding like the perception that surrounds like mental health is still like a little bit of a resistance to it, because it's something that is not talked about enough. And I could also connect that to like the Black community as well, and like my West Indian, like Caribbean culture and background too. Like there's like a lot of like misconception and also like a little bit of a resistance to it, where it's just like, oh, like you're not depressed, you're just sad, like you just sleep it off, or like, oh, you're probably sick, or you could pray it away. Like there, it's not really like a level of care like with these types of topics.
Yeah, no, 100%. We have a long way to go, honestly. It's a little saddening to see that, but also we have come a long way as well, where people are having conversations in masses about it. People like you and me, and even there are so many others who are having these conversations, some at whatever level that they can, right? So it is happening, and you can see the change, you can see the revolution happening. So yeah, that gives me hope, honestly. But yeah, we can only do so much at our level, and just trying to do our best.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially like sharing more, like if word of mouth is like more powerful than people realize. Like you could share it with your friends, they share it with their friends, and it like eventually spreads and raises more awareness. So, yeah, again, I'm grateful for people like you who are just like bold enough to make that first step and be like, hey, here's my experience, and this is something that I can manage, and share that knowledge with others.
Thank you. I honestly feel the same for you as well. Thank you again for all the work that you do. It's very inspiring, and when I see you put up all the work, all the episodes, and just knowing you personally, because I know how hard managing bipolar could get apart from everything. It's honestly very inspiring, and it's connecting with people like you, with Paris as well, host of Live with Bipolar. It's being in this
Yeah.
community of podcasting as well as mental health advocacy and living with bipolar as well. It's it's like, oh, people are doing it. You know what? I got this.
Yes, yes, I definitely agree. It's such a blessing for sure. And so I also want to talk about how speaking of managing bipolar disorder, I want to ask, like, what are some things that help you the most when it comes to living well with bipolar disorder?
One of the most important things that have helped me is therapy and medication. Although I do not like the medication bit of it, I would rather, be off them, because that's just a personal experience. I know that sometimes people need to be on some minimum medication to keep going to manage it well. So I'm not saying that, oh, medications are bad. I just personally don't want to be on them, um apart, because there are just other side effects that you experience, right? So yeah, that, but medications did help, and going to therapy did help, because going to therapy has helped me. Like the therapist that I go to right now is amazing. He gave me a lot of insight, and he continues to give me a lot of insight into how to manage it well, the triggers, being making me more self-aware, the patterns, even coming in terms with the acceptance of bipolar, because that is one of the things I struggled uh, like immensely at the start of the whole journey. Those are the things that I've therapy has helped me, get past my mental hurdles as well. So that, and also managing, having a schedule, but not a rigid schedule. Though I cannot function on rigid schedules, I can function on. So when I have a lot of things on my plate, I manage it. I think I manage it well enough. So keeping myself busy has also helped me sometimes, where I would need to push myself a little harder. On some days I take it slow, depending on what is going on in my life currently. But yeah, what the most important part that has helped me is self awareness and therapy.
Yes, I love that. And I resonate with like all of that too. Especially about the medication part, because I too have the same sentiments of like I don't want to be on it for like an extended period of time. Like, yes, I know it's important and
Mm.
it has helped me in like stabilizing my mood and everything. But at the same time, it's like that's not really a lifelong goal of mine. And I don't think like people are really open to hearing that, especially when mental health conditions like bipolar disorder are so heavily stigmatized. It's
Mm.
kind of like oh, like you better not get off those medications because you'll go insane. And it's just like, well, I'm not going to go cold turkey, but I want to get to a place where I can, be stable enough to not really need them as much as I do now.
Of course, exactly. Yeah, that's what I meant as well. Amazing.
Yes. So, Avantika, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. But before we wrap up, I
Mhm.
have one more question to ask you. So, what advice or words of encouragement do you have for people who are struggling to manage bipolar disorder?
I would say it's hard and it sucks. So I don't want to make it, I don't want to glorify it, or I don't want to say that, oh, it's all like hunky dory, or, you got this, but you don't got this if you don't put in the work. That's the hard part of it, because sometimes you just spiral, because I've seen personally as well as with myself, where if I don't take the necessary actions, if I don't be there for myself or take time or do the things which are crucial for my well-being, it is a whole spiral. And there was this, I was talking about this with one of the friends of mine. I was like, she asked me, what is the positive thing about bipolar? What is the good thing that you learn? And you can answer, oh, resilience, or you got stronger, stuff like that. But like, the thing is, when I think about a positive thing, I haven't found any. I haven't, because I didn't ask to be this resilient. I didn't ask to be, because I had no choice but to be strong, right? I had no choice but to come out the other way. So it's not something that you ask for, and I haven't been able to find anything positive. So my point is, wait, this is turning out to be a little demotivating. I do have a message though. My point is, it sucks on some days. Some days it's hard, the others are harder, but it doesn't need to put you in a box. It doesn't need to limit your potential. It doesn't need to, be a hurdle to the person that you want to be, to the life that you want to live. Despite everything, bipolar isn't your identity. Bipolar is a part of who you are, of what is happening, but it does not need to be your identity. The disorder, the diagnosis, whatever it is, whatever condition that you're living with, not just bipolar, but it only holds as much power over you as much as you let it. So it's really up to you. You're the co creator of your journey, you're the resource. You get to decide how much energy and how much, power you want to let the disorder or the condition have over you. So, despite everything, there are so many cases that you can see where people living with severe, very chronic disorders, maybe they came out the other side and were very very successful in their fields. Now, success might mean different for different person, so you need to define that for yourself, what it means for you. But regardless of the diagnosis, you will come out the other side, and you will figure it out. You will be, it's like, once you have a vision, hold on to it and put in the work that you need to do to get to the other side. It's not easy, but it does not need to limit your potential in any way. For me, it has helped me find out my passion for mental health advocacy. That's one thing. If I wasn't diagnosed with bipolar disorder, I might have been doing something entirely different with my life right now. So that is one
Mm.
thing. It gave me a purpose, of course. So that is, I guess, one good thing that came out of it. But yeah, my message to anyone who's struggling with bipolar is that don't let it put you in a box, and it only holds power over you as much as you let it.
Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much for joining me. Oh,
Thank you so
thank
much
you.
for having me. I had such a wonderful time with you talking about this, and I hope it reaches to the right audience, and I hope it resonates with someone, and I hope someone is able to take something out of it. And yeah, it was lovely talking to you again, and thank you for having me.
Yes, of course. And oh, Avantika, where can people find you and your podcast?
you can find me on Instagram, avantika.b02. My podcast Instagram, @beautifulyou.pod. The podcast is on Spotify and YouTube. You can look it up, Beautiful You. If you can't find it, just put Beautiful You podcast and you'll find it there. And please, I would love to hear what you guys thought about it. So any DMs are welcome. And I hope it resonated with you guys. So thank you for listening.
Thank you so much once again. I'll have all of your links in the show notes. And everyone, stay tuned for more empowering episodes on Rough Edges. Thank you for listening to another episode of Rough Edges Podcast with Sarah I. Fox. If you want more exciting updates on the podcast, follow on Instagram at rough.edges.podcast. You can also visit the official podcast website at www.roughedgespodcast.com. Thanks again for listening and have a wonderful day.